Okay, so hello everybody. Welcome to Edwards to a Degree, episode 8. Today I am joined with James.
Hi, I'm James and I'm a software engineering apprentice.
Joe.
Hi, I'm Joe. I'm electrical engineering apprentice.
And we have two very special guests, Mel.
Hi, I'm Melanie Guttridge. I'm the Early Careers Talent Specialist for the UK Product Companies.
And Andy.
Hello, I'm Andy Marsh. I'm the General Manager for the Eastbourne Product Company.
Okay, brilliant. Today we're going to be speaking about the importance of apprentices and young employees within Edwards. We're going to be speaking about ways in which people should have inspired us as apprentices. And then we're going to go into a bit of detail about the recruitment process, the sort of things you should be doing to prepare for a role like the degree apprenticeship at Edwards, and the sort of things that employers are looking for throughout the recruitment process. So, the importance of apprentices and young employees within Edwards.
I think we could probably start with, I guess, Andy, why we looked at apprentices for the Eastbourne Product Company initially. And that for us was very much around the demographics and diversity of the workforce at the site, but also about future-proofing the business. So creating those pathways for the succession planning, really. That is very much in a nutshell. Obviously, what then goes into that is a lot of looking at the types of skills gaps that would be generated from people retiring from the business and how we would best impart that knowledge onto early careers joining the business.
Can I just add to that? Yeah, because at the very high level, it was quite an obvious thing to do, really. We have a product company with around about 200 people in it. And if you go back 3 years, a big concern was that we were going to lose an awful lot of talent quite quickly if you make the assumption that people will be retiring roughly around their 65th birthday. Have to go exactly then, but let's use that as the model. It became clear to us that we would be losing between 6 and 7 people every year for the next 5 or 6 years. So our solution was very simple. We'll bring in 5 to 6 early careers every year for the next 5 or 7 years. I suspect we'll continue a lot longer. And then get to the situation where the early careers people are learning from those people who are in their last, let's say, 5 or 6 years in the business. Just building from Mel's point, what was quite a tricky thing to do is to predict where the gaps in resources are going to be in 4 years' time, because you're all moving into those positions in 4 years' time. So with a very dynamic business with multiple projects coming and going and changes in demand profile, very, very difficult, if not impossible. So we just take a guess every year, and actually we have an opportunity every year to make a little correction, don't we? So if we think we've got rather too many in software or too many in hardware, then we adjust it. And of course, in a few years' time, we're going to get to the position where we test it for real and you come out of the program and you move into those jobs, which will be there for you. I know that.
And I think it's good to just touch on how flexible Edwards actually is as a company, because although all these people are retiring all across the company, we can go wherever we want to. Well, obviously not wherever we want to, but based on the degree that we're choosing, we can go into 2 or 3 different departments, and filling those gaps is quite easy because it's quite a flexible company. So that's a positive.
I just want to add to that as well. It has to be there has to be a business need as well as an individual need. So, but usually it's possible. I think every case so far it's been able to do that. But the aspirations of the individual obviously are a big consideration. We're not going to force you into a role against your will, but there's certain roles that need to be fulfilled as well, and there are certain business needs, so we match up as best as possible. And I think all 3 of you are really good examples of where you're actually fulfilling real roles very early in your careers, and adding value a lot earlier than I think we all thought was going to be possible. It's quite impressive to see, actually.
So that's more Joe and James, but
yes,
I'll get there.
Or even yourself, Sam. Definitely.
Me and you helped me fix the test system on like your first week, which I hadn't have done. So no, you honestly done really well in that part.
So one for the apprentices, ways in which people have inspired us as apprentices. I think it's all over the company. Always, I'm always feeling inspired and looking up to people around me.
Someone that I find really inspiring is actually my manager, and the sort of the amount of effort, but also the care he sort of takes. over what we do. And I think just his dedication to Edwards as a company actually is quite impressive, and just sort of, you know, how good it is by the company by the way that he puts in the effort for Edwards, and he sort of gets that. And that sort of really makes me want to work harder for him because of the way he sort of works hard as well.
Who inspires me? I'd say my mentor probably does. I think it's because I want to be like my team. Yeah, I want to be at that level, and yeah, it just inspires me to work with them.
Yeah, I think that the second year apprentices inspire me a lot and help me a lot. I want to be where you guys have got to, and I know with your help I will. And then looking forward, we will hopefully be inspirations to the next year and the year after that and the year after that, and more apprentices to come. We spoke to the intake of next year's apprentices, or a few of them, and that was all very positive. And I think that a lot of them were actually watching this podcast, so that's nice. So hopefully we can inspire them into those roles. That is the aim. Moving forward to the recruitment process, speaking about the most important things that employers want to see in applicants.
I'll let you go first, Andy, and then I'll
Yeah,
I'll
and
I'm
not going to answer your question exactly the way that you put it, Sam, because I'm not going to presume to answer for all of the other employers in the country. But I will say what we look for, and actually when I say we, I mean at the Eastbourne Product Company, and that is the attributes that are set out in our talent framework. So drive customer success, improve business results, lead myself, focus on team success, and commit to sustainable growth. As you know, you've all been through the process, and I think we make it transparent at the time as well. We are looking for evidence that you satisfy those qualities, and we're not looking for any hypothetical answers to the questions that we answer. We want real examples from your lives. So what you've done that demonstrates, let's say, lead myself, just to pick one of the taglines from that. I am curious and resourceful. I take responsibility for and I engage in my own self-development. What have you done to prove that? Yeah. One of you who's learned to fly an airplane. Others, you know, there's a whole list of things that you've done outside of work that demonstrate those. It doesn't have to be necessarily related to the discipline that you're in, but just generally what you've done in your life so far. How close a match is it to the talent framework?
So I guess really from the recruitment process is that there's kind of a few different touch points really where a candidate can really get to express what they can offer the business. So for me, it's about making that impression from your very first application point all the way through to final stage interview. So in terms of the recruitment process itself, we obviously ask candidates to submit their CV and hopefully a cover letter. Now, the cover letter isn't depicted as a mandatory part of the process, but for me, it says a lot about the character of the individual applying for the role, because as Andy said, what that does is it gives you an insight into what they do outside of college, outside of school, and what it really is that drives them to wanting a career in, for particular this, engineering. And how does that tie in? And then that's certainly something that our managers also look at when we get to interview stage. So, you know, if you're electrical, have you always been interested in, you know, kind of building things at home or taking things apart and finding out how things work? Or same for mechanical. For software, have you always had an interest in software engineering? Have you dabbled with building your own computer or coding at home? And what that does is really then gives us that insight into how long you've been interested in a career in engineering, or actually whether it's something that's happened quite recently and what has really inspired you to want to apply. Then obviously you've got the next part of the process. So there are some online tests that we do send out to try and gauge understanding of particular skills. And there is then the assessment centre, which again, crucial part of that opportunity for you to really demonstrate what you can bring to Edwards. And it enables us to see how you'll work individually, but also, and probably more importantly, how you will function as part of a team. And I think certainly you guys will know, working at Eastbourne, that the teamwork side of you know, our day-to-day roles is actually paramount in anything that we do. So it's really important that we're finding the right individuals who will be able to integrate into a team and support their colleagues, as well as developing their own sense of belonging in the business at the same time. So yeah, for me, it's about demonstrating all of those things, but at every part of the recruitment process. And also, don't be afraid to ask the questions. So, you know, we've certainly had some interviews where, you know, we do the part at the end where we say, have you got any questions for us? And I'd like to see candidates, don't be afraid to ask those questions, you know, find out more what is a degree apprenticeship all about, and how does it function in Edwards. So yeah, I think that's what we tend to look at. And then, as Andy said, the competency questions are then linked to our talent framework. And then that's beyond as well. So you all know that your end of academic year reviews, again, they're all linked to our talent framework. So it's about reinforcing those and making sure that we've addressed those every step of the way, really.
Obviously, I'm not an employer, but if I was an employer, and I was in the room, I feel like I'd be looking for somebody who's confident. And I feel like employers are looking to build a happy team that can work efficiently together. A smile, I feel like, will go a long way. If you're rocking up to your interview and you're not feeling very confident and you're letting your nerves show, I feel like that might be a bit of a negative. So make sure you're smiling. Make sure that, you know, you're showing who you really are. And I think that's what I would be looking for, even though I'm not an employer.
And just coming back to a point that you made earlier, I think we can see past the nervousness. It's understandable that people might be nervous when they come to an interview. We can see past that, and as you will know, you've been through it. Although, you know, it's a deadly serious exercise, you're desperately trying to convince your interview panel of your attributes, and for them to make a decision that brings you into the company. But it is done in it's done in a relaxed and informal way. And I think with most candidates, the kind of all the nerves evaporate after about 5 minutes. I don't think we've had a situation where somebody's been trembling the whole way through.
No.
Once you get over this initial shock, well, you hit it well, because
I think that's exactly it. You know, we've been through a fair few of these interviews. Now, and not just early careers interviews, but interviews in general. It is a nervous process, and even the most experienced hire will be nervous when they arrive at their interview. I think that's only natural. However, it's remembering to enjoy the process. You're there to showcase you and what you can bring to the business, and I think if you can kind of get past that initial nervousness, then you're able to demonstrate that. And as Andy says, we're not a scary panel when you get into interview, and we will always identify those who are really nervous, and we say, have a glass of water, compose yourself, and when you're ready we can start. So it is, yes, it's an interview process, but it is a relaxed environment, and hopefully that brings out the best in people as well.
What's the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah,
the absolute worst thing that can happen is that you go through the whole process and we say no, but you've learned a lot from it. So you go into it with that. There isn't really a very serious downside. Yes, it will be disappointing, but just go in there. And I'm not giving this advice to you, but for others who may be watching this, who may be interested in applying, and just enjoy yourself.
Absolutely.
I think, especially as a young person, apprenticeship, most of us going in are under 25, not all of us, but around the age, or even under 20. I think I was 17 when I was doing my interviews. It's about getting that experience. It's you've got, if you muck this one up, there might be another one coming up, but it's about learning as well. And especially when you haven't started your career, you almost haven't got anything to lose. So it's just going in there and, just as Andy said, showcasing yourself. But the important thing is to have stuff that you can showcase as well. Make sure you have built up something that you can go in and go, yeah, I've done this, I've done that. Generally, it's got to be something outside of school, because everyone's done school. It's that thing to sort of outline you, set you apart, which you've just got to showcase. But if it doesn't go well, you probably, hopefully line something else up, or something will come along in the future.
And I think just going back on that as well, I guess it's, don't assume that the top level marks is what will get you through to the apprenticeship, because we do look at much more than that. Yes, okay, there is a minimum requirement to get onto a degree programme, sure, but we also look at the all-round individual. So, you know, what is your background? What are your interests, your hobbies? How do you come across as part of a team? How do you work independently? So it's all of those things collectively, not just a grade that you've achieved.
Not to be too cliche or generic in your answers,
Yes,
because
be
that
specific.
that doesn't show, one, it doesn't show your personality, two, it brings into question whether it actually happened. You know, just think of something interesting, original. You don't be scared to, because it might be a scared thing. It's, oh, they won't believe me about that, or, you know, that doesn't sound, you know, quite, I didn't get that quite right, or whatever. But especially as an apprentice, you're not going to be the finished package. You know, we're not going to be the complete package after 4 years, to be honest, because it was, you know, still early in the careers. But don't be cliche, basically.
No,
It
and it
doesn't
doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be really kind of high level, complicated scenario. It just needs to have detail. So we want to know, you know, the situation, the how, the why, what happened, how did you resolve it, or, you know, depending on the question. And it's really just giving us that detail and telling the story.
And it's a good point, James. Anything that sets you apart from others, because you know you've got to look at the process. We see quite a few people, and we have to make a choice. I'd cite an example from Joe, one of Joe's interviews, about giving too much detail away, and you know, very much illustrating the lead myself, I am curious and resourceful element, which is, you know, key attribute. Actually managed to build a facsimile of one of our products in his kitchen, you know, and demonstrated, I think, at least to his satisfaction, that it actually worked in the way it was supposed to. That was quite impressive, and completely, you know, we'd seen 12 other presentations on this. It was a talk about one of our products, and then Joe came along and said, obviously he did the presentation as well, but he'd actually made the product too. That set him apart from the others in a fairly major way.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It wasn't the only.
I kind of thought everyone would have done it.
I know. Your biggest worry was that, yeah, that everyone else would have beaten you to it. You were the only one. So yeah, that's just a good example of it was an interesting and unusual, and it just, you know, we were all amazed by it. It ticked every box.
My story was about how, I mean, I say that I saved the kid's life, but we were out in the fields and he had an allergic reaction. And now I'm wondering if you actually believe me or not. Or whether you thought it was a scripted one that I used.
Yeah, there are variations on the theme, Joe. So
no, yeah, fair enough.
I had forgotten that you'd actually cited that example. But yeah, they're various. Yours was a little different.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, cool.
James, just touching on what you said there as well about being, you know, comfortable in what you're delivering. Just to kind of share a little snippet from my own personal experiences, I deliver a lot of presentations, and, you know, when I've developed the content myself, I confidently deliver them. I don't have a problem doing that. However, I was once asked to deliver a presentation that somebody else has written. Well, I felt completely out of sync. I didn't, even though I'd gone through the slides, it wasn't my wording, it wasn't my content. And I always remember my boss at the time, so this was a previous role, she said, "Oh, you didn't seem very confident presenting today." And I said, no, I genuinely wasn't, because it wasn't my content. It's not how I would have structured my slides. It's not how I would have worded some of the content. So I think there is a lot to be said for that. You know, it's own what you're delivering, because you will feel much more comfortable that it's your words and it's your experiences than somebody else's.
I just thought of another reason that my interview was funny. It's because I was overly honest. When I was speaking about my presentations, I was on about how I really messed up a speech once and it was the worst time of my life, but it demonstrated my honesty, I think, and I think that was a good thing for me to say, despite me saying a really bad thing, because I need to give a bit of context. So I was delivering a speech and I hadn't really prepared it, because the previous speech that I had done, I'd over prepared and I nailed it basically. So I was like, yeah, I'm the man. And then I went and gave the next speech and it was a mess, and it was the most awkward time of my life. So now I've learned to over prepare every time for anything that I do, pretty much. So yeah, honesty, that's another thing that I think employers are looking for. But.
Yeah, I share my knowledge and experience with team members, so it was a good example of that.
I suppose actually we could ask Mel and Andy about their sort of inspirations of things, because Andy obviously overviews the whole of Eastbourne, or maybe outside, but we were talking about our inspirations, but the people that inspire, you know, Mel and Andy in their work and what they do. I think that would be quite interesting.
It's really interesting. I don't think I could name a particular person, but obviously I've been around a long time in Edwards, and I've worked with and for a lot of people, and I've learnt and taken inspiration from many of them. I have to say, not all of them, but a large number, well over 50%, have taught me a huge amount, and I've learnt from them. But more recently, if I was going to cite anyone, it would be Martin Tollner, our previous president, for his vision and leadership, which was absolutely phenomenal. So he worked with us for 3 years, and that was a really good experience, and he helped us a lot to get to where we are now, actually. And our present president, Carl, who I think you've interviewed at one of these previous.
I find Carl particularly inspirational. I think his vision in life and his experience in life, I think.
Yeah.
Just his approachability, I think it's amazing. I wasn't aware of the fact that they got him on. I just saw this message come through saying they got Carl on it. I was like, how have you done that?
Well, he appeared at one of the previous podcasts, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, so you see exactly what I mean by that. And it kind of illustrates the point I was making earlier about it's all about behaviors, and it's all about the talent framework. And you can get to a certain level in the organization, not very high, but you can get somewhere by ignoring or not really demonstrating those. But if you want to get to the top, you want to get to presidential, vice presidential, presidential level, that is almost more important than your technical knowledge, skills and ability. I'd say is more important. At that level, it's all about the way that you act and behave, because you're in a leadership position, and others will follow your lead, and act in the way that you've acted. So it's really, and those guys do not get to those positions by accident. Yeah. So it's because that they're displaying all the attributes that are set out in the talent framework really well, and it's obvious for all to see. That's why they're where they are, and that's where I look to for inspiration. So both of the presidents that I've had the pleasure of working with over the last 3 years. Now I'm going to put the spotlight on Mel.
Thank you. So for me, I'd say for this particular role, it's absolutely about drawing the passion from others who are passionate about early careers. And that was demonstrated right from interview through to being in post through both Andy and Zoe. And I think that makes a massive difference when your leadership team is really passionate about what you're working on. That for me in itself is really inspirational. So I think without that drive at a very high level within a business, it's very difficult to get a program to basically start to function and work successfully. So to always know that I've got that support with regards to the early careers program is something that is invaluable, really. It's something that, I certainly don't take for granted. And, I'm not saying that every person I come across is always 100% on board, but usually because they don't really know the level of detail and why it is what we're doing. So that is why we often try to demonstrate back to the business, kind of key updates on where we're at with the early careers program, how you guys are actually contributing to the business, which also brings me on to all of you. So for my role, it's about how you're all developing. And for me, it's like an extended family, and, you're all going to fly the nest once you've kind of graduated. It's really, but seeing how you've changed literally from just when you start in September to even now, Sam, and obviously James and Joe, a couple of years in, from that initial interview to kind of where you are now working on real-time projects, that is just, that's kind of the inspiration for me as well, that makes me know that what we're doing is good and it's actually working. I guess on a personal level, I will always remember a quote from one of my former managers, and this is probably going back to not long after finishing university, so one of my earlier roles. And my manager at the time, who I won't name because I don't know if they'd want to be named on a podcast, but they basically said to me, don't ever change your character to fit a role. Instead, harness your strengths to adapt to the role that you're in. And that's something that has always really stuck with me, and I think is something really important. So going back to that, being true to yourself and, you know, developing yourself. It's about don't change your character, be who you are, but at the same time recognize what strengths you need to adapt to roles that you are in, or, you know, kind of projects that you're working on at the time. So yeah, and that's something that's always stuck with me.
And just building on one of the points that that Mel made there, we are so incredibly proud of you all and the Early Careers Programme. It's, you know, we're into the third year now, aren't we? And it's been such an incredible success. When I look back on it, the time that kind of Zoe conceived of it 3 years ago, to where we've got now, it's incredible. And you are, I think I've said this to you before, but I'm saying it now for the purposes of this, just so it's on record here. You are the future of the Eastbourne Product Company. And you're a sizable force to be reckoned with already. More than 10% of the permanent population is early careers. And that number is growing quickly as we add more people to the programme throughout the course of this year. So it is really starting to have impact and adding a huge amount of value to the business already in these early years. So you are an inspiration to all of us as well. Yeah, really proud of you. Really proud of this whole program.
Yeah, we're looking to take over, and we will do.
Yeah, that's it. That's what's exciting about it all. That, like, we are kind of like the new generation, the new wave coming in, and yeah, all the new things that we're bringing in. Like, I mean, Charlie has his 3D printer, doesn't he? So I know that when he done his test engineering rotation, they got him to make a 3D print of some stuff. Which is, yeah, it's just, yeah, the more new we get and the better we get.
Yeah.
And the feedback we got from quite a few of the managers is that you guys and girls make them remember why they were passionate about engineering all those years ago.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
So for some of the engineers, that they are reaching, you know, kind of retirement age, and they found themselves, you know, doing their job, but probably kind of plodding along a little bit, counting down the days. And then you guys came in and injected this sense of energy and this breath of fresh air, and they said that is why I do the job I do today, and that is why I've been here so long, because that is me however many years ago. And they love the way that you challenge the status quo. So rather than well, we do it this way because we've always done it this way, and you'll go, well, actually, have you thought about doing it this way? And they're like, no, brilliant, thank you. And they love that you bring that to, you know, to every day now. So I think that in itself has kind of re-energized the product company as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good thing for Edwards as a whole, having those people with so many years of experience to give us the knowledge that they actually have. Because if we were joining a workforce with maybe a younger team, we might not get the same sort of experience. So we are really getting the proper training here, and I really do appreciate that. So thanks for picking me up.
And on the point of the kind of demographics, it is now the case that there are more people who've been in Eastbourne Product Company for less than 2 years than there are who've been here for more than 10 years. And I didn't think I'd see that so quickly. That's a very significant change, and that's a lot of new ideas and new thinking that's been recently added to the product company. I mean, that obviously it extends beyond the early careers, but includes the people that we've recruited in over the last couple of years as well. But a lot of fresh thinking, a lot of new ideas, and the early careers team is a big part of that statistic, of course.
I'll just say that, like, I definitely, about what Mel was saying earlier about how the other guys are kind of like inspired about what they were like when they were younger through seeing us. I definitely see that with my team, and especially my manager John. Like, if he's showing me like a project and I'm like, oh my god, this is great, and you see him like, oh my god, This is great. I want to do
He actually
this kind of
says
thing,
you
and he's-
you were him. Yeah. He goes,
Yeah,
Joe
yeah,
is
exactly.
me all
Yeah,
those
yeah,
years
that's
ago.
That's great. Yeah,
yeah.
I love that.
And it does. It reignites that passion that they had when they first started their career.
Yeah, absolutely.
The one thing apart that they probably don't like about the apprentices being is it does remind them they are getting on a bit with people who have been born in 2000 working.
It reminds me, James, I don't know about them, when I'm sat in a room on your induction and I've got a sea of faces who are like sort of 17, 18. Yeah, it does make me feel a little bit old, but yeah.
Every day someone mentions that there's a test machine older than me. I'm like, I know.
Oh dear.
Probably older than you, Sam. Yeah, probably. Right, okay, thank you for checking in on Edward's 2 Degree episode 8. We hope to see you for the next one. Thank you very much. Thanks, Andy, and thanks, Mel. Thank you, James, and thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Sam.
very much.
Sam.